Welcome to another episode of First Step, where we get industry professionals, leaders in their field, to share with us the steps they took to get them to where they are today. And this would become like my unofficial season two. I've had like a 3 week hiatus. Circumstances being what they were. I was unable to record. I actually did a little small getaway with the family, and we went to Tobago. Under the whole COVID lockdown thing, it was a really nice change of pace, and it was needed. So I decided then I would take the opportunity to break after something like about 2 months of recording. 2 months, almost 3 months of recording individuals and sharing videos of people and the journeys and having some really interesting guests, a lot of them being people I would have interacted with. So I said, you know what, Arian, I started getting stale. Honestly, I was like, I wasn't getting any zeal for it, believe it or not. And it's just what I realized is once you don't inculcate a routine, at least for me, it kind of is easy to kind of just fall back into the rut now, just fall back into a zone of whatever. But I decided now, in order for me to keep the first step going, and I think it's a good thing, I need on my own to activate, to spur it on. So I decided I'll come back and share my raw, unedited self with you guys. I'll give a little background on my story and share, some of the things that I decided to do and the reason for me getting into the first step and my journeys and my, discovering myself at this stage in my life. So, briefly, I started music production in 2006 professionally after living in the UK for a little while, for a couple of years, and being encouraged to go to the UK by a good friend of mine, Richard, who I worked with in BWE at the time. And Richard was saying, boy, Stafford, check it out, because they had this working holiday visa that you could go to the UK and work and study and, travel at the same time. So, I actually had never been to the UK before, but luckily I had a friend, a good friend that I grew up with. We call him Barney, and he was living in the UK. So, I said, well, you know what? I'll go for a holiday, check it out, see what kind of vibes the place is, and if after that I like it, I might just take up Richard on, traveling across to England and seeing what that is like. So, went across to England probably in 2003. Yeah, about 2003. Spent a week with my friend in London, and that week was an eye opener for me. I fell in love with the place instantly. I've traveled to the US many times, traveled many different countries, but England, that one trip kind of sealed it for me. The place was the right pace for me, the right environment, the right type of exposure to stuff, to culture, to people, and I just fell in love with it. So my mind was made up at that point. So I came back and I started putting things in place to go across to England. And that happened in 2004 when I took voluntary separation from BWE because they were transitioning at that time to go to Cal. And I decided I would take the jump. But strange enough, actually, I was, indecisive, honestly. And which normally happens with people when they're going to make a change or, turn a new chapter in their life. And I normally used to have this jogging routine. Every morning I'd run up the hill where I grew up. And at the top of the hill, it was just peaceful, and I would take that time to do my own little version of meditation and connecting with the higher being, God, So at the top of the hill, I prayed, and there was an interview I was doing to become a flight attendant with BWI at the time, and I guess they were still transitioning to Cal. And I said, what I would do if I get you this job, I would stay, and if I don't, well, England, here I come. So long story short, I killed the interview. I was acing it. I felt confident, and it somehow having a plan B does make you feel like you have no, you have no holes barred. Then you can do what you want. But I interviewed really, really well for Carl, and at the time, I actually was growing a ras. Now I'm unable to grow a ras, but then I was, bringing in a little ras. And I went through the whole interview process with my hair in this kinky at the time. And it seemed to me that they were really, into my personality and all that. And the last question they asked me in the interview was, are you willing to cut your hair to do the job? And I said, no, I won't cut my hair. And it was me and another girl. And I felt like I ran circles around that girl in the interview, but they said okay, and I ended up not getting the job. But the blessing in that was, and I was so grateful for the opportunity and that journey, because that then sealed it for me that England was the option. So I went to England, and England just exposed itself to me in a wonderful, wonderful way. Leaving for England, I had £150 of my own money, and that was it. I went to England with £150 in my pocket, and on the day I was leaving, no, the week I was leaving, my mom asked, she said, Arian, how much money I have? I said, well, I have £150. And she said, boy, I don't think, mummies being mummies, she said, I'll organize something for you. And she ended up going to her credit union or whatever. And bless her soul, she has always been a rock and a supporter for me. My family, honestly, has been really, really pivotal in my life. And she gave me an additional, I think it was £400. £450, yes, because I went to England with £600. And that was it. The journey started. I met a lot of wonderful people. I ended up meeting who would then become a great friend of mine, Seren, and a rock at the time who kind of held me down to Neil. She essentially became like my sister there, and you need that support base in any new venture or any new journey that you're on. And I was really blessed, and I've always been very blessed to be around some very wonderful people in my life. So did England, did the music there, studied, did everything, came back, worked at BA, and that was another experience in itself. That was an eye-opener. And I came back home and I said, all right, time to take Trinidad by storm. So my great friend who actually interviewed Giandre, he was on one of the interviews that we did on First Step. And while in England, before I was getting ready to come back home in 2006, we started communicating about, things to do, and we decided that we would come together and open a recording studio. He would have his room, I would have my room. We'd operate as two independent businesses, but coming together to share rent. So we did that in 2006. We opened up the studio in St. James, on Bengal Street in St. James. And that was a really fantastic experience for me in learning the industry, because I thought I knew a lot. But, Gianjo was able to mentor me and say, Arian, this is how it is. And through him, I was able to network and meet so many other people. And that journey took me to getting into my present field, because what I wanted to do was just compose music for artists and do music production for artists. I wasn't really interested in doing corporate stuff. And he introduced me to doing advertising, which I'm currently doing today. And we operated from 2006 to 2009 when, economics turned a little sour here, 2008, 2009. So we closed down in 2009. But the blessing and the lesson in that was, for me, that although the facility itself was closed down and I would have ultimately lost some money in terms of not being able to make the full use of the space for an extended period of time, I never regretted any of the decisions I made, and I took it as my tuition fee for my university degree in music, being a music professional in Trinidad. So 2009 closed down the studio, and actually got married in 2008. So that was a kind of stressful time for me, because now I'm saying, well, where am I going to make money? I have a family to support, child on the way, what I'm going to do. And you really don't know what strength you have within yourself, and more so the strength that God or the universe or whoever you want to call on of a higher force could play, or what kind of position that force could play in your life. And within the time I was able to utilize a good friend, Dial Braxton, who is now passed on, who has now transitioned. He passed away earlier on this year, and he exposed me to Nigel Nicholson. And within that time, he said, Arian, here's what you could use MySpace, because he had set up a studio in St. James with similar to Giandra and I, but he had his studio and Nigel Nicholson had his school, Star Broadcasting. So I started freelancing, so to speak, and using Braxton's space. So I would get little jobs here and there, doing songs for people and all that. But not having a space, I kind of lost some of my advertising clients. So I was just freelancing, doing music. And Braxton had an associate, a friend of his called Leah Phillip. And she was into doing white-up courses. And she actually was lecturing at SBCS at the time. And she said, Arian, why you don't go and teach? And I was like, well, I don't have no experience teaching, even though my dad is a teacher. And I felt that, I honestly felt that I didn't have sufficient knowledge to share with somebody, kind of underestimating my own ability. So she said, no, I'll go and teach, because she was kind of transitioning out of SBCS and trying to get into the white-up contracts. And Nigel, who had a school, Star Broadcasting, was actually looking for music production lecturers. So it just happened that all these things came together for me, just in moving and walking and just walking the walk and going along my journey and being open, that all these teaching suggestions came to me. So I decided to go to SBCS, because she said they would have an opening now for short courses. You should check it out. So I went to the interview, and I interviewed a Saturday morning. I remember it really well. Saturday morning at the SBCS Chamflair campus, I was able to meet with Dr. Robin Maraj, the founder of SBCS himself, and he interviewed me. And it was really informal. I didn't even walk with a CV or anything. I just walked into the room with myself, and he was gracious enough to accommodate me. And he said, Arian, well, we know these industry professionals is not as formal in terms of, academic, I guess, certification as other industries. So he, although I actually did study my field and all that, but he said I would give it a chance, and he allowed me to lecture at SBCS. And Nigel, strange enough, he said, Arian, I need a lecturer. and I lectured at Star Broadcasting. So I became now like a freelance lecturer between Star Broadcasting and SBCS. And that just opened up my mind and my eyes to a different horizon and different opportunities. And I realized then that I really had an ability, I would say probably a gift in connecting with people. You know, I wouldn't say I'm the best teacher. I wouldn't say I'm the most knowledgeable. I wouldn't say I'm the most skillful in my field. But somehow I was able to connect with these people and share my knowledge and share with them, because I honestly had a real natural, desire for them to do well, and I was very keen in the people. I'm very interested in people. That's one thing with me. I'm very interested in people. So we did that. I did the SBCS and I did STAR, and that went on for a few years. So that was able then to help me within my downtime of, transitioning from having the studio and my income to now still being able to provide in some way for my family. And I went through some periods where it was, man, stress. You don't know how things how things gonna work out. You have bills, you have commitments, and I was so blessed. I really, really, really have to thank, the Supreme, the universe, to God, that things just always worked out. They always worked out, and even though I was stressing myself, things were working in marvelous ways. Because even like when my son was born, I asked against Sarah, who I was living with in England, boy, I'm looking for somewhere for my kids, and he said, boy, take your child by my mother. She would take care of that child for you. And Pet, being as gracious as she was, she said, Arian, bring him. And she wasn't even charging. She said, just bring my son. And again, emotional, feeling, worked up now. But she said, just bring him. And I did. And Pet took care of my children. She took care of Twee, and then she took care of Yandy. And she never had a formal charge. She just said, Arian, whatever you can manage, you just bring. And I've been so blessed and, gracious with all these people in my life. And so I just kind of jump a little bit there. But now going back to this teaching. So the lecturing actually helped facilitate, and then Leah got a white-up contract, and she asked me, Arian, you could lecture this, you know this, you've been doing it. And I said, yeah, sure. And then I did the white-up with Leah, and then that exposed me to a bigger group of people, and and that was like an eye-opener for me. So now moving from music production, just wanting to do music, opening studio, to now becoming a lecturer in music production, and sharing with people and being exposed to people, and still remaining actually quite good with most of these people not most, some of these people, a good bit of the people that I would have lectured to and, become friends with. I through Nigel, and you would find this reoccurring, just exposing yourself to people and being open to meet people, and not, closing yourself off, and being like antisocial or being a recluse. You would find that life opens up for you. So through Nigel, I met Brian Regis, and Brian had a studio, and he was looking for another engineer to come on by him. He had a space in St. James at the time, and we became friendly. And he said he recommended that I come to his studio, and I would be able to operate on my own way independently. I would then just contribute to the overhead, rent, and all of that. So we worked out an agreement, and I said, yeah, I'm going with it, because this was like, I would say in 2012, 2013, around there. And the space he was in St. James, actually, he had to move. So he went to Picton Street. And he said, area and the options still on the table, come through. And, utilize his space. So he had himself and his business partner, Michael Blackman Mush. And I would share space, share the room with Mush. And Brian had his room. So we did that. And that was a really, really, really great experience for me. One, being in that environment, again, meeting more people and being exposed to more people. And, now being able to get back into advertising. So Brian facilitated the space, but I had to go out and obviously find my business. So I made one connection with a friend, Andre George. His now wife was working at an advertising agency, which I actually had done my first commercial with, Pepper Advertising. And so I reached out to Andre and I said, Andre, talk to your wife and see if she could organize someone to get a connect in Pepper in the advertising. So he did. And she was able to set up a meeting for me with Pepper. And I met Eric Barry there. And Eric was cool. He was really cool. He facilitated me being in this, he gave me some time. We met and I told him, well, strange enough, they were just one block away from where I was now at Brian's place. And he said, all right, well, we already have a studio we use, but I'll come and check out the spot. And if it have any opportunities, I would probably, allow you to try it out. I'll try out. So he came, he checked the spot, we spoke a little bit, and he went. And he said, he called me. He said, well, Arian, we don't have any work right now, that I could, send your way. But I'm working on a project called Face to Face. So bear with me, everything kind of does line up. So he working on a project called Face to Face, where he would do audio interviews of people in the arts and theater specifically, because he is big in theater. And I actually interviewed Eric Barry on this as well, on First Step. So Eric said he wanted a spot to record these people and if I would be willing to do it. And he said, and I said, well, yeah, no problem. I would do it for you. I hadn't gotten any other jobs from Pepper at the time as yet. And, I did it. And it went really, really well. And what happened for me, I love stories. I always say I may not be the best storyteller. And my kids might be my only fans when it comes to storytelling, because in the night we'd lie down and I'll tell them stories and make up stories for them and all that. But I love stories, and my dad always exposed us to Paul King's Douglas when I was coming up and growing up with my aunt, Tanti Vera in Sawa. She would always be talking she little bacchanal stories. So I always loved listening to stories. So I listened to the Face to Face podcast Eric was doing, and I was so intrigued by it, so I would edit it up and listen to it, and that went on. And that Face to Face podcast then planted a seed in my mind, in my spirit, at some point that I would be doing a podcast. It just lay dormant somewhere in the back of my spirit and my mind, and I went about my business. So meeting Eric, he actually interviewed another guest called Christine. So Eric, after we continued doing the Face to Face, I started getting work with Pepper, and doing some ads and, being exposed to Brian, who was 100% on ads. Being exposed to Brian, seeing how he worked and his style of doing work and his creativity greatly influenced me. So that helped me, I guess, to fine tune my advertising skill. And then I could do jingles as well, because I was into music production. So I did some jobs with Pepper, and Eric interviewed Christine Johnson on his Face to Face podcast. And it so happened, it's so critical that you just do, just do and keep moving. The only time it is stuff happening phase when you stagnate yourself. So I just opened up myself to the Face to Face podcast. Eric interviewed Christine Johnston. Christine happened to be looking for a studio to work with, because the production house that she was doing work with in terms of the company she works for, which is Publicis Advertising. They were looking for a new studio, and she asked Eric. She said, "Eric, but I need a spot." And Eric said, "Check Arian. He does work with us. He's good. He's the guy who did the thing." And she said, "All right, cool." And she called me, and she started sending work to me, and that was a real blessing. So the blessing from Eric, who through the Face to Face, through Andre's wife, to Eric, to doing work for Pepper, to doing Face to Face, to meeting Christine, to doing work for Publicis, it just opened up. So now I was settled in, income flowing, things were going really well. I was meeting new people through being in the space by Brian, because Brian he was very popular. He worked in radio, and he was known in advertising for his work and all that. So I was able to meet a lot of people, and being exposed to the environment, really helped build me and develop me. So this now is like started in 2006, so this would be around 2013, 14, still going. But it don't ever be like a Cinderella story. Unfortunately, Brian and I parted ways, and I decided then I needed to get my own space, because within the time I always used to be praying, believe it or not, and saying, "Lord, show me a way to grow my business, to open up to more clients, so to grow my business." I always used to be praying that, and on my way to the studio by Brian, I always used to look at this building on the left hand side. It was like a narrow driveway. I used to say, "Boy, that driveway kind of narrow, boy." But the building somehow always used to grab my attention. And so the day when I decided that, but while at Brian, knowing that I had to leave, I wasn't actually actively looking for a space. But I knew I wanted to leave by a certain time. By the end of the year, I wanted to be out. This would have been 2015 now. I wanted to be out by the end of the year. So I wanted 2016 to start in a new space. So I was not actively looking, but I was just in the area seeing if it had little for rent signs and all that. So there was one place on Marley Street, and I interviewed, the guy interviewed me. It was a nice place, I'd be onto my own. The rent wasn't bad. But something about the space just didn't feel right. And that's one thing, my vibes, I always go with my vibes. The space just didn't feel right for me. So, and the space and something about, I don't know if it's the guy's energy as well. So it just didn't settle with me. So I was about to sign the contract, and I said, "You know what?" I had to call him and say, "Unfortunately, I wouldn't be taking his space." So I had to go by Brian, and I knew I had like 2 weeks again, and I knew I wanted to leave. So I said, "Boy, it had one day I was in the studio, and I said, "Boy, let me just walk." Something literally said to me, "Arian, walk." So I got up, I went outside, and I started walking up Picton Street aimlessly. I don't know what I'm looking for. I said I might see something. So I walked straight up to the Savannah, and I turned right, and I decided I'll walk down Woodford Street. So I started walking down Woodford Street. And while walking down Woodford Street, I'm looking at signs, and I seen anything to see if I might see, I'm lucky enough to see a for rent sign. But nothing, and I just walked back up, got down to Charlotte Road, So to turn back now, to go back onto Picton, to go back into the office. And the same building I've been passing all the days and looking, something just said, Arian, go in. Now I fight in it. Is sometimes you don't know what this be speaking to you, God or your higher self or whatever you'll believe in, to speak to you, but your conscious self does be fighting or reasoning or rationalizing. And my partner Chana does always say that you stop rationalizing, you're always rationalizing. Anyway, so I did rationalizing now, and something said, Arian, just go and look. You don't have to come, just go. So I went in, I walked in, and I didn't know what I looking for. I walked into the driveway, and I saw a door to the middle of the building from in the driveway, from in the parking lot. And I just walked into the door, and I looked into an office, and it was empty. And I knocked on the other door, and it was empty. So I went upstairs, and I knocked on the door upstairs, and a girl answered. So I was assuming, well, I said, I just around looking, and I'm not really committing to anything, but I was hoping I could get a number to inquire about the space. And the girl said, well, she's not concerned with the space in the sense of she works for a business that is renting from there, but she would give me the landlord's number, and I could try and reach out to the landlord. So she gave me the number, and I said thank you, and I went, and I still fighting, I said, well, boy, whatever, but somebody said, Arian, call. So I called, and I didn't get through, and I left a voicemail, and I said, well, this is Arian Stafford. I went to the space, and I saw the space, and I was inquiring if there were any spaces for rent. So the person called me back, and I missed the call. So I called again, and she didn't answer my call. So finally she called me back, and I was able to take the call, and she said, hi, who is this? I said, explained what it was, who I was, and she said, well, son, honestly, we don't have any space. We don't have any space to rent because everything is occupied. And I said, okay, well, I said, well, okay, thanks very much for your time, and being polite, because my parents raised me well, And she said, but here's what, I'm coming down to Picton so and so date. Come and see me at the office. And so I went, and she said, well, why you come here? How you come here? How you got my number? And I said, well, I explained the whole story to her. And she said, all right, well, I don't have any space, and this is my office. I only have a little annex in the back. So she said, well, here's what, let me go and look at the annex. If you'd like it, if it could work for you, then you could use it. It's yours. You could have it. So I looked at the annex, and it was way too small. And I said, well, no, the annex is too small for me. But your office is perfect. And she laughed, and she said, well, believe it or not, my husband was telling me I should, rent the office out because I actually hardly use it. So I said, well, yeah, I wouldn't mind taking the office. And so she said, all right, well, I'll speak to my husband, and I'll get back to you. And a few days passed, and she called. She said, Arian, we wouldn't mind having you on, and you could come, and you will come in January. So I wanted to leave where I was. I knew I had to leave the studio by Brian at the end of the year, and she said, Arian, come in January. So everything just lined up perfectly for me to come and get this space and set up and build, and so it really is just blessings, and I can't take all the credit for all the things that would have happened for me in my life, leading up to this point. But what I can say is a divine force or guidance played a significant part in it, and me as well, acting. And I remember the first person I interviewed on First Step, Ken Simmons, he said that you have to act. You have to act. and I honestly know about procrastination, and I sometimes procrastinate because of fear, sometimes because of straight up laziness or lack of interest, but action is the key, action and as well as guidance and being open for opening yourself to being guided. So I moved in 2012, in 2016, into the space that I currently operate, this space here. And it has really been a blessing for me. And even though you think you get blessed with a space, that is a blessing, it's up to you now, which I have learned being here, that you still have to do your part in working it and utilizing the space and maximizing the blessing that you've received. So I then had to go, and thank God I had my clients, so they stayed with me, Eric and Christine and some other agencies, and being able to hold on and make my rent and be here 4 years on now, 2020. Even in the COVID now, it had some points that was hard, honestly, I can't lie. It had some points I missed rent, straight up. Things was hard, and having other commitments, bills to pay. It has been a journey, and it has been a battle at times. I wouldn't say a battle, but it has been stressful. Many times it has been stressful, but somehow, in the midst of everything, when I think it at its lowest, I always come out. I'm always able to find my way out through some miraculous way. Business coming in, some slow periods, just all of a sudden business would come to me, bless me, and I would be able to make my way and all that. And being in this space, now my landlords, same Mrs. Hannah and her husband, have been honestly really, 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 really gracious with me. I've been blessed to be to be with them. So it's an energy thing. Somehow the initial guy, he was a nice fella. The space that I was looking at before, he was a nice guy. But something about his energy didn't click with me. And coming here, these people vibes just work for me like it sinks. I don't want to take their kindness for granted, and obviously, and can't say their business is business, and I still had to commit and make my rent. Thank God I've been able to, to make my rent. Sometimes struggling, sometimes late, sometimes miss, and had to say, well, there and work out whatever, but I've been, and I'm still here today. Through the COVID, through struggles, through business being slow, I've been able to make. And I give thanks for that. I'm really grateful. And I'm not being airy-fairy and thinking that is a perfect world. And I know I've been blessed for this space. But I don't know. I don't think I'll be here forever. And I know when I move from here, it would be another blessing. But I don't know what circumstances may be that I would have to move, because the economic situation we're facing now is what it is, And businesses are closing down. Rent, people not getting as much business as they were. So I'm being realistic as well. But to this day, I would always sing high praises of my landlord and the circumstances which allowed me to be here. And I give thanks to everyone who played a part in that, from going straight back to Neil, Sarah, and my family, Eric, Christine, my aunts, my landlords, Leah, Nigel, Brian, Braxton, everybody. I could call a whole list, but that's been specific to the industry, because this is what I guess First Step is essentially about. So now, I am on this journey on the podcast, and just looking at different ways to express myself. And I've been blessed with being exposed to so many people within the time to share, who would be able to share their stories and hopefully influence someone who might need a little influencing or a little motivating, and helping, just a little kickstart through a little word or something might stir up some action in them. And now this activity of sharing this is not me at all, speaking to a camera, speaking incessantly. I normally love listening. I'm not too keen on the speaking, except if it's to my children. They say I don't stop talk, but this is really something different for me. I'm not a professional broadcaster by any means. So first step, people can critique it, and I am very open for positive criticism, because I know my drawbacks. I know things that I need working on. Aesthetically, people said when I was home area and you see your curtain in the background, breeze blowing, the background looking, you're in your house, and I knew that. And believe it or not, those things were deliberate. I did those things intentionally. My grooming wasn't even of the best in the first episodes. I was looking like a caveman, and that as well. I was saying maybe I should shave and present myself properly. But that was deliberate as well, because I wanted to show that whatever your circumstance, whatever your situation, use the tools that you have and don't make any excuses for starting your action. Don't make any excuses. A lot of times people say, nah, you had to have the perfect this, and you had to look so, and the right angles, the right lighting, whatever. And that is just excuses. Start, as everybody says, start. You have something burning in you, just do it. And as I could take little quotes, as I like to call them, little nuggets from all these people I would have spoken with. Find your passion. And if that's your passion, don't make no excuses for it. Be unapologetic about expressing yourself. Terry said that. And that is how she found her success. Richard Trumpet was obsessive about getting into radio. And he just went at it. Kezia Reese, she sat outside her school. She knew that's the property she wanted. The place was bushy. It wasn't in the most ideal situation or state, and she saw in it, and she was ready to start. So I rant and I rave and I misbehave, but really and truly is about action. And the action with some discipline. Every morning I try to do a journal. So any journal, I speak about the time I get up. I always document the time I wake up. My intentions, things that I would have done or wanted to do, things that I see in myself, whether positive or negative, I write it down. And then I have something I write every day, which I would share some parts of it. But one of the things I write every day once I journal is I am divinely guided. I'm guided I operate with divine guidance, discipline, faith, and all things with love. So that's kind of like my way of operating, And as I internalize it now speaking, I realize that those kind of like are my watchwords. Divine guidance is what kind of steered me to get me where I am. The discipline is what is necessary to keep doing, to perfect, or to work your plan according to my uncle. Uncle Wade always say, plan your work and work your plan. And honestly, the discipline is a real hard thing for me a lot of times, because I'm very vibesy and spontaneous, and I want, however my mood goes, that is where I want to go. So sometimes I deliberately have to set a routine. For me, I need a routine. If I don't have a routine, I all over the place. And I'm not one naturally predisposed to routines. So I have to have a routine in order for me to function and be effective. So divine guidance to take you to the right places and meet the right people. Discipline to have a systematic way of operating. Faith that the systematic way and that you're on, and the guided way and the systematic way that you're operating will, reap its reward. And love, because love for me is everything. And my wife, I just like people. If I don't like you, it's because something in your vibes probably off, or we just in sync. But I generally really like people, and I probably find love or see it easily in people, right? I always see the good somehow in people. Generally, I think that's probably one of my gifts. So those are like my watchwords. And so if I were to ask myself my own questions, what I would do differently if I could speak to my younger self, I would say, honestly, be bold. Don't give in to fear. Don't be afraid to act. Don't be afraid to ask. And do what your spirit leaning you to do. Don't doubt too much. As well, I would also say, manage your money properly. Find your accountant, organize your business, because in this industry, because I'm a business owner, you have to find a proper structured way of managing your business. So those things I would have started earlier. And I'm still working on it. I haven't even reached where I need to go yet. I still have to work and remind myself of these things all the time. And now the other part, my playbook. My playbook would be one, identify what speaks to you the loudest. I read once, if you go to sleep, I actually heard this once. I think it's Maya Angelou. I can't remember. But basically the saying is a paraphrasing. If you go to sleep with it on your mind and you wake up with it on your mind, that is what you're meant to do. Right? As in a career. So once you find, that is probably an easy way, I guess, to identify your passion. Right? Find your passion, whatever it is. Find, and then get as knowledgeable as you can about your passion and do it. Don't just read, because we are a lot of readers and watchers and all those things. But faith without works is dead faith. So you have to do it. You have to act. So do. And then so this is kind of like my playbook. This is kind of like my little watchwords going on. Have the faith that the actions that you took would manifest itself at some point. And we set our own little timings, and we say, but this isn't happening. You start to get despondent, you start to get discouraged. I have certain things that I want to accomplish to this day, and I ain't see it yet. But I know that all the things that I did want to accomplish in the past have come to pass. So that is what keeps my faith going, And now I have to have the faith and do the work, take action. And round it off, just love what you're doing, love people around you, share love, be positive as you can, be open and express yourself. Though that don't mean you're being a pushover and taking shippiness, but love and find goodness in people, and they would see the goodness in you as a result. So that was my first step. This is season 2 of the first step. I would like people who, I would like my fans, hey, I would like my fans, I would like the viewers of this, if you have anyone that you could connect me with that you think has a story to share and might be open to doing this, because one of the challenges, honestly, outside COVID is now that it's harder for me to get people to do the podcast, because at time, COVID was easy. COVID for this thing was a blessing, because everybody home, I could reach out, everybody had nothing to do, and people open and they would share. But now the place opening back a little bit, well, we kind of know a little under more restrictions because of the cases that came up. So it's a little more difficult for me to get guests. So if you know of someone and you think they would be willing to share and they have a story to tell, again, remember the whole thing is industry professionals, leaders in their field sharing the steps they took, you know. Please, by all means, feel free to share, and I would greatly appreciate any assistance in that regard. So that was my first step. I hope it wasn't too boring, and I hope it reaches someone and they're able to benefit from it. And if they like it, share, subscribe, and see you on the next one. Thanks so much. Be blessed.